Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you guys doing tonight?
Woo!
Yeah, I feel the energy in the room. I'd like to thank you all for joining me for part one of a stand-up series that's about the United States President that I am entitling, "If He Gets Elected, I'm Leaving the Country." I don't know about you guys, but I kind of get irritated by that phrase. Whenever people said it about Bush, said it about Obama, they're saying it about Trump, they're saying it about Hillary. I get irritated when people say, if that person gets elected, I'm leaving the country. Because in my opinion, what makes a great American or a great patriot in any sense of the word is the ability to know that shit is going south, but that things will probably get better if you actually see it through. Are things terrible? Fuck yeah. Is stuff at one of the lowest points it's ever been? Fuck yeah. Are things gonna get better?
Fuck yeah.
One bit of optimism. High five for that one bit of optimism.
Thank you, Kim.
But it also angers me because I get the feeling this isn't a new thing. This has been a thing that's been around ever since the country was founded. We need only go back to our first president, George Washington. Now, he didn't have to worry about any of that, if he gets elected, I'm leaving the country stuff, because he is, to this date, the only president who ever served 2 terms where he was unanimously given every single electoral vote. That has never happened, and he did it twice. So that just goes to show how immortalized that man has become in our country. We need only go to the tall tales about George Washington to see that. How many people have heard the cherry tree story? That George Washington cut down his father's cherry tree and told him, yeah, it was me. That's a false story, but it added to the allure of George Washington. Same thing about his false teeth, the myth that George Washington had false wooden teeth. We like to associate George Washington with having wood somewhere near his body. Take that as you will. But the false teeth story really gets me because he did have false teeth. That part is true, but they were made out of different things. Like he had teeth made out of ivory, the teeth of different animals like hippos, and just a lot of different sort of types of teeth that he had. But I get the feeling that if he was born a millennial, he would have a much different set of teeth. Like he would come down to his high school graduation. Hey guys, just got my new shark teeth put in today. Fight the power. He goes to walk down the aisle to accept the nomination for presidency. He has just all normal teeth except vampire fangs just sticking down. I would like to thank you all for voting me president. I hope that these next 4 years can be very eventful. Team Edward for life. The first real president that I get the feeling people were like, if he's elected, I'm leaving the country, was our second president, John Adams. Now, John Adams is often called the most qualified man who ever held the office of president of the presidency. He was a foreign minister, the first vice president of the United States, a longtime statesman and attorney, the lawyer for the British soldiers responsible for the Boston Massacre. So why have you not heard about this guy if he was so qualified? Well, the truth of it is, John Adams was a boring person. He was really fucking boring. Compare him to someone like Benjamin Franklin. The reason you know who Benjamin Franklin is, despite the fact that he was never a president, is because he was one eccentric son of a bitch. This guy made up every single famous story that people know about him, except the ones involving his genitals. Those were just constantly true. With that kind of eccentric attitude, you need to be remembered in history. Another problem with John Adams is that he was very self-conscious and sensitive. We would never elect anybody as self-conscious as he was. The Alien and Sedition Act, which was the first law that ever made it a crime to speak badly about the government, was passed because John Adams, yeah, John Lennon, he passed laws, didn't he?
John Lennon, 2016.
But John Adams heard something that heard people complaining about him, and he didn't like it, so he passed a law saying nobody could say anything bad about the president. Can you imagine if a president today did that? If Barack Obama just out of nowhere tomorrow passed a law that said you can't say anything bad about him, we would be enforcing our Second Amendment right to overthrow the government pretty goddamn quickly, I'll tell you that much. With our third president, it was a much different scenario. Thomas Jefferson was probably the most respected man who ever held the office of the presidency. He was the first Secretary of State, second Vice President, author of the Declaration of Independence. He had a huge amount of stuff that he could put on his epitaph. And his death is actually very interesting because he died on the same day as John Adams, July 4th, 1826. And reportedly, John Adams' last words before he died were, "Jefferson lives." Does anyone know the irony behind that?
Jefferson died first.
Jefferson died a few hours before John Adams. Imagine if he lived in the world of the internet. That would be a much different scenario. Like if George Bush and Barack Obama both died on the same day, George Bush's last words, "Obama lives," his attendants would all be like, Mr. Bush, former President Obama died about 2 hours ago. That son of a beep!
There you go.
The very interesting thing about Jefferson as well is that he hated being president. We know him as the guy who was responsible for the Louisiana Purchase. He was also a guy who was the first president for the people, so to speak. And he also is mainly known for fucking his slaves. All men are created equal was supposed to mean all women are created equal in the eyes of my genitalia. That is what he truly meant. But he hated the presidency so much that he left it off of his epitaph. He had every single accomplishment except being president. Let me tell you guys about a young man named Scott Halpin. Scott Halpin was a young American that in 1973 got the greatest opportunity of a lifetime when he was at a concert for The Who, and Keith Moon had done a shitload of horse tranquilizers, and he passed out in the middle of the concert. And Scott Halpin was a member of the crowd, got a chance to go up and play the rest of The Who's set. That's something that's worthy of being on a tombstone. You know the only thing that would be a better feather in his cap? Being elected the goddamn President of the United States. That's what. But not for Thomas Jefferson, though. That was the low point of his career.